Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. There are 4 mads in there. I just want to make sure that I get that right. And this is a movie that has been recommended to me by many people. Now, I've seen it before, and I'm going to let you know what I think about it, my true thoughts, feelings, and so forth. Talk a little bit about the movie. There will be spoilers ahead. I'll pretty much have no issue just telling you every single thing about the movie. So if you haven't seen this movie and you really want to watch it, make sure and go watch it. Save this video to watch later. Once you watch it, come back. So let's get started. This movie came out in 1963. What's really interesting about it is the length of the movie. How long was it? I have here 2 hours and 41 minutes. Let me tell you, that is long. That is long for the 60s. That is long for now. You've heard of 2-hour-long movies. Everyone knows The Sound of Music is a long movie. Well, this one is only 8 or so minutes short of Sound of Music. So that gets you an idea of how long this movie is. Now you would say, well, the more the better, right? Not necessarily. That's not what I would say about this movie. I do have the things I love about it. I do have the things I don't like about it. But I'm going to be completely honest and tell you where the movie fell short and what you'll be expecting when you watch it. So what's this movie about? It's essentially about these cast of characters that find out that there is some money hidden. They're gonna go and find this treasure, find this money, and chaos ensues throughout the movie before they get there. That's kind of the plot. Now, what's really interesting is that this concept has been done before, and I would argue that it started in the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour with Lucy Hunts for Uranium. It's a really good episode, one of my favorites actually, in which they chase uranium. Here, the characters are chasing dollar bills, money. Actually, about $350,000 in 1963 value. In today's valuation, I'll put it up on the screen for you. That gives you an idea of how much money. So it was definitely a lot of money. Now, what I mentioned was that this concept was done in the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, but it was also done in a movie called Rat Race. It's actually one of my personal favorite chase movies. I think it takes this idea, but does it differently. So it's not a remake of this movie at all. It's the chase concept, chasing money, chasing. But other than that, the way they get there, all the creative ways that and all the creative encounters differ. Now the movie starts out with a really fun theme song, kind of a circus style theme song that starts playing before you see any visuals, and you get this long pan shot of the desert and cars coming through and speeding away. What's really great is that the plot, it just shoots you right into it, which is good. That's kind of what we want. And it makes you really excited for the movie. Now, after seeing that pretty eventful crash in about, the first minute of the movie, you see big names. You see Sid Caesar, Milton Berle, Buddy Hackett. You see Ethel Merman, Jonathan Winters, as well as Mickey Rooney. They appear on the screen. They're the people who witness this accident. And like I mentioned, it's sanitized for the 1960s, but it's comedic. The death is comedic. In fact, the driver, who is on his deathbed here in the middle of the desert, is Jimmy Durante. So he makes a cameo there. And basically his character, his purpose is to tell us, hey, there is money somewhere, and he gives them clues, and there's a big W. That's where the money's going to be. And he kicks the bucket. Well, actually, no, literally, he kicks the bucket. The character kicks a bucket that happens to be on the side of the road, and then he passes away. And then he goes back and says a little more, and then he goes back. It's comedic, because if you know that, you understand what's going to happen to the movie. Essentially, there's money somewhere. Let's go get it. It's on the other side of the state, and so forth. So they all get into their cars. You see a lot of, I'm not going to get into all the cameos, but there's so many. There's Norman Fell from Three's Company. He plays one of the officers. There's Spencer Tracy. There's the Three Stooges. There's Jack Benny. There's Don Knotts. That's just a few, but there's so many peppered in. I thought that's kind of fun for you to spot them. Now, one of the scenes that I also like near the beginning has to do with how everyone is going to split the money, because they say, okay, there's 350. Let's just use that amount for the 60s, $50,000. How are we going to split it? There's 6 people that saw it, but there's 6 different trucks or 5 different vehicles, but there's 3 people in one of the vehicles, so should we split it 3 ways for that vehicle? But the other truck has only 1 person in it, so how are we going to split that up? And then taxes, do we report the taxes, do we not? It's just a great scene that I think it makes sense. It works well. This is something that individuals would do, and it's very realistic. And the reason I point this out, because there's some scenes in here where I don't even know why they're here. They don't really advance the plot. They're not even that funny, in my opinion. And these are some of the things that will slow the movie down, and I'll get that in just a little bit. Mr. Bean's Big Holiday, and that is one, I have to review that film. It's one of my favorite Mr. Bean films, or just films in general, because it's so G-rated, it's so wonderful. There's no obscenities, it's very family friendly, and he's chasing after something, not money, he's chasing after a vacation spot, essentially relaxation, and he has to go through all these little adventures. It's like Pee-wee's Great Adventure. It's that concept, and it's really fun because you're traveling along with the individual. Same with It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Now, Spencer Tracy plays the chief of detectives, and he is essentially surveilling all of these people in different parts of the state. I was found fairly bored in the beginning with the Spencer Tracy stuff because it didn't move along. It kind of dragged out with unnecessary fluff, essentially just trying to tell us that his life wasn't great. That's it. And just trying to prove it to us many different times over many multiple scenes. And it's like, okay, we get it. I think he shines more at the end of the film where he becomes a little bit more human. We kind of like him a little bit more, even though he is the antagonist. This movie does not take itself seriously. It's essentially a mild cartoon or a live action cartoon. There's a scene with Jonathan Winters and where he is essentially destroying a gas station with just his body and punches and pulling whole doors off of cars and things like that. It's, like I said, it's very cartoony. You're either into it or not. For me, that gas station scene was too long, and that's what I kind of wrestled with this movie a little bit. It has some great scenes that I love, and I wish a lot of that style was repeated, but then you have these scenes where destroying something, but it's just so long. Could have taken some of that instead of just, if it's constant destroying, that would be funny, that builds over time would be great. But sometimes there's like chasing, and he's chasing 2 or 3 people, and then he punches something, then there's more chasing, and then I can't find him, he's hiding, and you see the person hiding, time goes by, then something else gets destroyed. So I also couldn't stand the character of Sylvester in the beginning. There were 2 or 3 scenes where he was just dancing, and there was literally 30 seconds of him dancing with like 60s music in the background, and he just has his underwear on, and he's like going back and forth, doing the same move over and over again. I'm like, why? Felt if you took that out, this movie could easily have been 2 hours and 10 minutes, to even 2 hours, I would think. There's, 46 minutes of stuff that they could just, if you condense, they could have gotten it so much shorter and just so much more action-packed. Ethel Merman was amazing. We have Milton Berle, who was essentially one of the main characters. The movie revolves mostly around him. There's this British character that was Mr. Hawthorne, I believe. He was all right. Mickey Rooney, let me tell you, and Buddy Hackett with Jim Backus, yes, from Gilligan's Island. They're on a plane, and they're trying to fly. That whole plane plot was amazing. I think it's one of the best things in the movie, along with the ending building scene. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. There were times where I was like, please speed up to get to where we want to go. Like I said, and I don't know if any of you noticed that as well, but I wish some scenes weren't in here. For example, the scene with Sid Caesar and his wife in the basement was funny, but again, it was too long. It was 4 or 5 sequences back and forth. Another scene that I didn't really like as much, Milton Berle was with Mr. Hawthorne. They were going back and forth, basically Berle saying things badly about the UK and Hawthorne saying bad things about the US, and it went on for like 5 minutes nonstop, and I was like, what's the purpose of this? Again, it didn't advance the story. It wasn't even really funny. This movie has something that I think most don't have unless we're looking at a musical, and that's intermission. Yeah, at about the middle of the movie, it literally says intermission in red, and then there's music playing, and the screen is black. And it's about a couple minutes. You have to actually advance, unless you want to sit there and look at the black screen, the music. That's what you would do in the theater. But if you have the DVD or the Blu-ray or however you would watch it, you could advance it. But it's just such a strange thing. I guess it's very 60s. I guess it's very musical oriented. And let me tell you, the arc with Spencer Tracy got interesting when, again, spoiler alert, when he is the one who, after surveilling this and wanting all this money and so forth, he takes it for himself, kind of threatens the group after they dig everything up. So by the way, they find the money under W, these palm trees that are in a W shape, and yeah, he decides to confiscate the money for this building. And that's my favorite scene. They used a lot of effects that were really I would say, kind of extraordinary for that time. Remember, this is the 1960s. They use miniatures, they use physical sets, they use kind of a old primitive type of green screen, which is not green screen. It's, I believe it was rear projection that was used to make the building like that. They probably use matte paintings as well. I wish there was more of that highlighted and not these little dialogue things that were totally unnecessary, didn't advance the plot, weren't funny, and I was like, why are they here? How would I rate this movie? I love using the A to F type scale. And let me tell you, I would have had no problem giving this movie a higher score. The thing is, it really brought it down because it took me out of the story, those scenes that I'm mentioning. And so I'm going to have to give this movie a solid B. I think a B is a really good score. It's not a movie that I would watch all the time, but I would definitely rewatch it, so it's very rewatchable. Nothing Oscar worthy, it's very silly, it's very cartoony. Is it fun to watch? Yes, and at times, not as much. Now, if this interests you at all, this movie, you haven't watched it, I would recommend you watching it, even if you've heard all the plot points that I mentioned. It is worth a watch. It is worth one watch. It is maybe worth a double watch if you want to like show it to someone else. But I know a lot of people really love this movie, but I want to be really fair in reviewing it, giving it that solid B, which I think overall it's a great movie. They got a lot of powerful people on here. They did fairly well with the plot. It's very simple. You can understand it. It lost points on the dialogue and so forth, but I think you should definitely watch it, and I would recommend it to you. Thank you guys and gals for watching. If you want to see more reviews like this, reviewing classic movies, even maybe newer movies, I'd love to hear your recommendations down below. We'll see you next time, guys and gals, and don't forget, most importantly, be hopeful. Thank you so much to all the supporters I have on Patreon, especially my Diamond tier patrons. Vito L, Tommy G, Ricky, David D, Citizen Kane, Sally N, and Grace U. If you want to find more exclusive content, visit my Patreon page, links in the description.